In a moment seared with injustice, a dignified black CEO, whose hard-won success once commanded respect, was brutally stripped of his rightful place, his VIP seat forcefully taken to honor a white passenger. This act of public humiliation cut deep, a stark reminder of the unyielding grip of prejudice and the bitter sting of betrayal. It was not just a removal from a chair, but a dismantling of his dignity, a painful spectacle that set off tremors in the corridors of power and challenged the very soul of those who believed in fairness. This is a story where the scars of humiliation become the fuel for relentless pursuit of truth and redemption, drawing you into a world where every injustice sparks a desperate fight for honor and equality. Watch until the end to see how this incredible story unfolds, and let us know what time you're watching today. The rain fell in a steady, almost mournful rhythm, tapping against the old window panes of the abandoned waterfront warehouse. The night was thick, with a damp chill that seemed to seep into every crevice of the darkened streets. In the distance, the occasional flicker of neon from a shuttered diner and the soft hum of a city that never truly slept lent an eerie quality to the scene. The sky above, painted in deep hues of blue and gray, carried the weight of secrets and unspoken sorrows, setting the stage for a story that was as complex as it was heart-wrenching. John stood on the edge of a deserted dock, his gaze fixed on the distant silhouette of a city skyline that blurred into the murkiness of the night. His expression was one of quiet determination, yet beneath the surface lay a turbulent sea of doubt and regret. Every step he took echoed softly on the wooden planks, as if each sound was a heartbeat of his inner turmoil. He had reached a crossroads, a point where every choice could alter the course of his life, yet the answers remained as elusive as the shadows that danced around him. John's thoughts wandered back to earlier days, to a time when hope had burned brightly in his heart. In those moments, his dreams were as vibrant as the summer sunsets he had once watched with his family. Now, however, the light had dimmed, replaced by a persistent chill that whispered of past betrayals and lost chances. His life had taken a turn he could never have predicted. One moment he was at the pinnacle of promise, and the next he found himself wrestling with the consequences of decisions that had long ago slipped from his control. He pulled his worn coat tighter around his shoulders as he recalled the painful memory of the day his world began to unravel. It was a day marked by an unexpected confrontation where the harsh reality of his circumstances was laid bare. The memory was as clear as the raindrops streaming down his face, each drop echoing the regrets he carried. In that moment, the man he once was collided with the man he had become, forging an identity that was riddled with sorrow and uncertainty. Despite the weight of his burdens, John maintained a stubborn resilience. His eyes, though shadowed by fatigue, held a spark of determination that refused to be extinguished. In the quiet of the night, as the city around him slumbered, he resolved to confront the darkness head-on. There was a certain beauty in his struggle, a raw, unfiltered desire to reclaim a part of himself that had been buried under layers of pain and disappointment. The echoes of his past were not merely reminders of what he had lost, but were also beacons guiding him toward a future yet to be defined. As he moved along the weathered path of the dock, John's mind was drawn to the cryptic letter he had received earlier that day. The letter, penned in a delicate yet assertive hand, hinted at secrets that could reshape everything he thought he knew about his life. It spoke of betrayals, hidden alliances, and a destiny that lay waiting beyond the veil of his current existence. Though he had not yet unraveled every mystery contained within its folded pages, the mere existence of the letter stirred something deep within him, a flicker of hope amid the pervasive gloom. The distant hum of a boat engine broke the silence, drawing John's attention to a small vessel cutting through the dark waters. The gentle lapping of the waves against the hull created a rhythm that resonated with the beat of his anxious heart. In that moment, he felt a connection with the isolated vessel, as if both were navigating the same uncertain waters of fate. The vessel's lone lantern shone defiantly in the night, a symbol of persistence against the relentless encroachment of darkness. In the midst of his reflective solitude, a memory of his past surfaced, a memory of his close friend Michael, whose unwavering support had once been his anchor in the stormiest of seas. Michael had always possessed an innate ability to see the light in the darkest moments, a quality that John admired and yearned to emulate. Their friendship had been forged in the fires of shared dreams and collective resilience, yet over time, life had pulled them in different directions. The thought of Michael's encouraging smile brought a bittersweet comfort, mingling with the sadness of their current estrangement. It was a reminder of the human connections that, even in moments of despair, could offer solace and a path toward redemption. Walking further, John reached a weathered bench beneath an ancient oak tree whose gnarled branches stretched out like the arms of time itself. He sat, allowing the cool dampness of the bench to ground him in the present while his mind wandered through a labyrinth of memories and possibilities. The oak tree, silent and steadfast, seemed to hold within its rings the story of generations, a story that now intertwined with his own. Here, in the quiet company of nature, John allowed himself a moment of vulnerability, closing his eyes to let the steady murmur of the rain and the rustle of leaves soothe his weary soul. Yet, even in this moment of introspection, a subtle unease crept in, a nagging sense that something beyond the physical realm was at play. The shadows around him shifted with a life of their own, as if the darkness was not merely a backdrop, but an active participant in the unfolding drama of his life. It was a prelude to the inevitable confrontations that lay ahead, a quiet harbinger of betrayals that would shake him to his core and force him to confront truths long hidden beneath the surface. John's heart pounded in a cadence that matched the rhythm of the rain, each beat a reminder of the fragile balance between hope and despair. His journey, marked by the scars of past missteps and the heavy burden of unfulfilled promises, was about to take a turn. The secrets contained within that mysterious letter, the echoes of friendships lost and battles fought, all converged in this singular, fateful night. As the rain began to ease and a faint glow emerged on the horizon, signaling the impending break of dawn, John rose from the bench with a renewed sense of purpose. The uncertainty of the night still lingered, yet in the fragile light of early morning, he saw the potential for renewal, a chance to mend the broken pieces of his soul and face the challenges ahead with a heart that was both scarred and unyielding. In that quiet, transformative moment, the stage was set. The city, with all its hidden corners and secret passages, was a silent witness to his determination. Every raindrop, every whisper of the wind, and every subtle shift in the darkened sky bore witness to the promise of change. John took a deep breath, inhaling the cool, crisp air, and stepped forward into the unknown, his heart filled with both trepidation and a spark of hope. The journey that lay ahead was fraught with danger and betrayal, yet it was also an opportunity, a chance to reclaim a lost part of himself and to find, amid the darkness, the light of redemption. And so, with the echoes of the past guiding him and the promise of a new day beckoning, John walked into the night, ready to confront the shadows within and beyond. The night had barely begun to recede into a haze of early dawn when the unexpected knock shattered the fragile calm that had slowly been seeping into John's thoughts. It was not a knock at a door, but rather a persistent, irregular tapping on the metal of the warehouse's rusted door. John paused, his heart thumping louder than the remnants of the fading storm. The sound carried with it an unsettling mix of urgency and forewarning, as if something or someone was desperate to be heard. Cautiously, John moved toward the door, each step echoing in the empty space. The atmosphere was thick with the promise of secrets waiting to be revealed. With a deep breath, he opened the door to find a stranger shrouded in the dim light of the pre-dawn. The figure, dressed in a long, dark coat that blended seamlessly with the lingering shadows, offered no words at first, only a slow, deliberate gesture that invited John to follow. Compelled by a mix of instinct and a curiosity he couldn't quite explain, John stepped out into the cool, misty air. The stranger led him through narrow, winding alleys, their path lit only by the soft glow of street lamps fighting off the last of night. As they walked, a silent tension built between them, the quiet punctuated only by the distant sound of a city stirring awake. John's mind raced with questions. Who was this person? Why had they sought him out in such a secretive manner? They finally arrived at an old, forgotten courtyard where a single, battered wooden bench awaited. The stranger motioned for John to sit, and then, without a hint of hesitation, handed him a small, weathered envelope. The envelope, sealed with a red wax stamp that bore an unfamiliar crest, felt heavy in John's trembling hands. There was no accompanying note, only a cryptic symbol etched on the back that glowed faintly in the dim light. Its meaning was elusive, yet it stirred memories of long-buried fears and old promises. John's pulse quickened as he broke the seal. The letter inside was written in a fluid, yet firm hand that carried both elegance and authority. The words spoke of a hidden truth, one that would shake the very foundations of everything John had believed about his life. It warned of a betrayal lurking in the shadows of his closest relationships, hinting that someone he trusted had harbored dark secrets and ulterior motives. The letter was laced with an urgency that left no room for doubt. The status quo was about to be upended. As John read, the chill in the air deepened, mingling with the shiver of dread crawling up his spine. Each sentence seemed to peel away layers of safety he had built around himself, revealing a vulnerability that he had long tried to hide. The letter mentioned an event, a gathering of influential figures, where hidden alliances were forged and deadly secrets were whispered. It spoke of a looming confrontation that would force him to confront not only the treacheries of others, but also the shadows within his own soul. The words struck John like a thunderclap. He remembered a conversation he had shared with Michael just a few weeks earlier, where promises of loyalty and trust had been exchanged as casually as old friends sharing a laugh. Now, the letter suggested that Michael might not be the steadfast ally he had always believed him to be. The mere thought of such a betrayal sent ripples of disbelief and sorrow through him. It was as if the ground beneath him was crumbling, leaving him stranded in a maze of uncertainty and mistrust. Before John could fully absorb the gravity of the message, the stranger spoke, their voice low and tinged with both sorrow and resolve. "You must know," the stranger said slowly, "that nothing is as it seems. Every smile hides a secret. Every gesture conceals a motive. Trust is a luxury in a world built on deception." The words hung in the air, heavy and unyielding. In that moment, the stranger's identity was secondary to the message, a warning that resonated deep within John's heart. A sudden noise, sharp and unexpected, cut through the heavy silence. A distant siren, perhaps, or the clamor of a world oblivious to the clandestine drama unfolding in its midst. The sound startled John, and he looked up, eyes searching the darkened corners for another sign of intrusion. But there was nothing. The alley remained a realm of secrets and shadows. Yet the unease grew, gnawing at his mind with relentless persistence. The stranger continued, "This letter is just the beginning. The night will reveal truths that you are not ready to face, and there are those who will stop at nothing to keep those truths buried. You must choose your allies wisely." Their gaze was piercing, as though they could see the very turmoil that roiled within John. The message was clear. His life, as he had known it, was on the brink of a monumental upheaval. John felt the weight of the letter settle into his very being. The familiar world of predictable routines and quiet desperation was dissolving before him, replaced by a dangerous game where loyalty was fickle and betrayal lurked in every shadow. His mind raced with possibilities. Had someone close to him orchestrated this warning? Or was it the work of an unseen enemy with a vendetta? The thought of Michael, his once trusted friend, flashed unbidden through his mind, casting a long, uncertain shadow over their past camaraderie. The early light of dawn began to seep into the sky, softening the harsh outlines of the dark alleys and lending a deceptive calm to the scene. But for John, the peace was a fragile veneer over a storm of emotions. The letter had ignited a spark of defiance in him, a need to seek out the truth, no matter how painful or dangerous it might be. Yet it had also left him feeling isolated, as if he were the only one aware of the ticking time bomb of deceit hidden within his life. As the stranger melted back into the obscurity from which they had emerged, John remained seated on the old bench, the envelope clutched tightly in his hands. The city around him was beginning to stir with life, but within him, a battle was already being waged between hope and despair, trust and suspicion. Every heartbeat was now a countdown to an inevitable confrontation, a reckoning that would force him to face the painful reality that the bonds he had so carefully nurtured might be nothing more than fragile facades. With the weight of the mysterious message pressing down on him, John rose slowly, determination mingling with trepidation. The familiar paths he had walked countless times now appeared foreign, tainted by the possibility of hidden enemies. In that single charge moment, his life was irrevocably changed, set on a course toward a future filled with uncertainty, betrayal, and the relentless pursuit of truth. The quiet morning air, filled with the promise of a new day, carried no comfort for John. Instead, it whispered of challenges to come, of secrets waiting to be unearthed, and of alliances that would be tested in the crucible of unforeseen events. As he began to walk away from the courtyard, the letter's warnings echoed in his mind, a constant reminder that in a world where appearances deceived, the real battle was yet to come. John stepped into the familiar warmth of his favorite cafe, the clink of porcelain and soft murmur of conversation enveloping him like a long-forgotten lullaby. He found his usual seat by the window, a quiet corner where he could watch the world go by and mull over the mysteries that had upturned his life. As he sat, his mind replayed the stranger's words and the cryptic letter that had shaken his trust in those he loved. Before long, Michael arrived. His friend's smile was hesitant, as if burdened by secrets. Michael's eyes, warm yet filled with a trace of sadness, met John's across the small table. There was an awkward pause, a silence that spoke volumes before any words were exchanged. "John," Michael began softly, "I've been trying to reach you since I heard about the letter. I was worried something was wrong." John's gaze hardened slightly. "Worried?" "Michael, this isn't just about worry. It's about trust, about feeling betrayed by someone I thought I knew well." His voice trembled with a mix of anger and hurt, and the cafe's soft lighting seemed to spotlight the raw emotion etched on his face. Michael's eyes darted away, searching for words. "I understand why you feel that way, but you have to believe me, John. There's more to this than meets the eye. I never intended to hurt you." His words were earnest, yet the underlying tension was palpable, like a storm waiting to break. John's fingers drummed on the table, betraying his inner turmoil. "I thought we were in this together. I thought our bond was unbreakable. Now, I'm left wondering if every word we ever shared was just a part of a game I never signed up for." The conversation drew the attention of a few nearby patrons, their whispers fading into the background as John and Michael's dialogue deepened. Michael leaned in closer, his tone low and pleading. "John, listen. I found out about some things that I believe you need to know, but I wasn't sure how to tell you without causing more pain." John frowned, the corners of his mouth twitching in disbelief. "What do you mean, Michael? What things? You're the one I trusted more than anyone. If you have a secret, now is the time to come clean." For a long moment, Michael was silent, his eyes reflecting a painful mix of regret and responsibility. "There's something you don't know about the gathering that the letter mentioned," he finally admitted. "I was there. I witnessed conversations, alliances being forged behind closed doors. I overheard things that made me question everything." John leaned back, absorbing the confession. The cafe's background noise receded as his focus sharpened on Michael's words. "And you kept this from me?" he asked, the hurt evident in his voice. "I didn't want to burden you," Michael replied, his tone heavy with remorse. "I thought I could protect you from the chaos, from the harsh truth that would shatter the illusion of our safe world. But hiding it only made things worse." John's mind raced. He remembered moments of laughter shared over coffee, promises made under starlit skies, and the unspoken understanding that had once tied them together. Now, those memories felt tainted by the revelation of hidden truths and half-truths. "Michael, why now? Why reveal this when everything is already falling apart?" John's voice cracked, laden with desperation. You could have helped me understand, helped me prepare. Michael's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. I thought I was doing the right thing by keeping quiet. I believed that by delaying the truth, I could spare you the pain of knowing how deep the deception goes. But I see now that my silence was a betrayal in itself. I was wrong and I am sorry. Their conversation paused as the weight of their shared history settled between them. The clatter of coffee cups and the murmur of soft jazz played in the background seemed to underscore the intensity of the moment. John's thoughts drifted to the letter again, the cryptic warnings and the mention of a betrayal that might be closer than he had ever imagined. "Who else was there, Michael?" John asked, his tone now edged with cautious determination. "Who are these people you saw? Who can I trust when everything is cloaked in lies?" Michael took a deep breath, his hands shaking slightly as he reached out. "I overheard a name I never expected to hear mentioned in such a context." He hesitated, eyes darting around as if the very walls might be listening. "It was Daniel, and I believe there's more to his story than we ever knew." John's eyes widened in shock. Daniel had always been the quiet observer in their circle, a man of few words but steady resolve. The thought of him being involved in something so sinister sent a shiver down John's spine. Daniel? But he was always so reliable. How could he be part of this? Michael's voice was barely above a whisper. "Trust can be fragile, John. Even the most unassuming person can hide a darkness beneath. I'm not saying Daniel is the mastermind, but his involvement is a clue, a piece of the puzzle that could lead us to the truth." The dialogue between them deepened as they recounted memories, shared doubts, and faced the harsh possibility that their once secure bonds might have been built on shifting sands. They spoke of long nights filled with confessions, of moments when their vulnerabilities were laid bare, without fear of judgment. Yet now, those very memories seemed to clash with the new reality that threatened to unravel everything they had known. John's introspection grew as he questioned every smile and every reassuring word from his past. "How do I know who is real anymore?" he murmured, his eyes searching Michael's face for any sign of deceit. Michael's reply was firm yet tender. "You have to trust your heart, John. It tells you the truth when your mind is clouded by doubt. I know I have made mistakes, but my loyalty to you has never wavered. I'm here, willing to fight alongside you, to uncover the hidden layers of this deception." Their conversation continued, a delicate balance between anger, sorrow, and the tentative hope that truth might yet prevail. John felt the stirrings of a fragile reconciliation, a desire to mend the torn fabric of their friendship, even as the looming threat of betrayal cast long shadows over their reunion. As the morning unfolded, the cafe became a sanctuary for their raw emotions, a place where every word carried the weight of unspoken promises and painful revelations. Their dialogue, though steeped in vulnerability, was also a testament to the enduring strength of human connection. Even in the face of betrayal, the roots of their friendship remained, albeit scarred and fragile. John looked at Michael, his eyes now softening as he recognized the sincere remorse and unwavering commitment behind the words. "Maybe," John whispered, "we can still find our way back to trust. But first, we need to face these secrets head-on, even if it means challenging everything we once believed in." Michael nodded slowly, his resolve mirrored in his eyes. "We will. Together, we'll uncover the truth. No matter how deep the deception runs, I promise you, John, that we won't let it destroy what we've built." In that quiet moment, with the cafe bathed in the gentle light of a new day, John and Michael forged a tentative alliance. They agreed to retrace the steps that had led them to this crossroads, to dig into the shadows of their past and the hidden corners of their present. It was a dangerous path, fraught with uncertainty and the risk of further betrayal. Yet it was the only way forward, a journey that demanded both courage and vulnerability. As they prepared to leave the sanctuary of the cafe, their conversation lingered in the air, a promise to confront the unfolding drama and to fight for the truth, even if it meant exposing painful realities. The delicate interplay of their dialogue and shared introspection had set the stage for the rising action that was yet to come, a battle for trust, redemption, and ultimately, the reclamation of a once unshakable bond. John's heart hammered as he drove away from the cafe, Michael's solemn words echoing in his mind. The cityscape blurred past him, a tapestry of flickering streetlights and restless shadows, mirroring the storm of betrayal swirling within. He couldn't shake the feeling that the revelation about Daniel was merely the tip of an iceberg far more treacherous than he'd ever imagined. Later that afternoon, John found himself outside a quiet, unassuming building that Daniel had once mentioned in passing, a place that until now he'd associated with Daniel's reserved and trustworthy nature. He hesitated at the door, a knot of uncertainty tightening in his stomach before finally pushing it open. Inside, the building was dimly lit, filled with the muted hum of conversations and the clatter of keyboards. It felt like a hidden world, far removed from the straightforward life John had tried to cling to. John's steps were measured as he navigated the labyrinthine corridors. A nameplate on a door caught his eye, Daniel. His breath caught in his throat. With a deep, steadying breath, he knocked lightly. There was a moment's pause before the door creaked open, revealing not Daniel's familiar calm face, but Michael's anxious eyes. "John," Michael said softly, his voice betraying a tremor of guilt. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Michael?" John's tone was low, edged with disbelief. "What are you doing with Daniel?" For a long, charged moment, Michael's eyes darted to the door behind him. I can explain," he stammered, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting to see someone lurking in the shadows. "We need to talk, privately." Inside the small, sparsely furnished room, John's confusion only deepened as Michael's facade began to crumble. The tension in the air was palpable, every word laced with an unspoken history of secrets and half-truths. Michael's normally steady hands now fidgeted with a worn leather bracelet, a token John recalled from happier times. "John, you have to understand," Michael pleaded, his voice cracking with remorse. "There are things I never told you, things I was trying to protect you from. Daniel, he's not the one you think he is." Before John could demand clarification, a quiet chuckle broke the silence. The sound came from behind a partially closed door. Reluctantly, Michael excused himself to answer, leaving John alone with a growing sense of foreboding. As he waited, John's eyes roamed the room. Photographs of past gatherings, candid moments shared among friends. Each smiling face now seemed to hide layers of deception. His mind raced. If Michael was involved in this, what else had he concealed? The door swung open, and Michael returned, his face drawn and pale. "John, you need to see this," he said, pulling out a small tablet from his jacket pocket. On the screen was a series of messages, timestamps marking hours of clandestine conversation between Michael and a figure John recognized all too well, a high-ranking executive known for orchestrating corporate coups and ruthless power plays. The messages were explicit. Discussions about manipulating events, leveraging the confidential letter, and ensuring that certain individuals, including Daniel, played their roles perfectly. John's eyes widened as he absorbed the betrayal. "So you were in on it," he whispered, voice barely audible. "All this time, you planned it." Michael's gaze fell to the floor. "I never intended for you to be caught in the crossfire," he said, voice heavy with regret. "I thought I was protecting you by keeping you unaware. But the deeper I got, the more I realized how entangled everything was. Daniel was just a pawn, an inconvenient piece I had to use." The revelation struck John like a physical blow. His trusted friend, the one person he'd confided in during his darkest moments, had been orchestrating a complex web of deceit. The messages on the tablet were irrefutable, each word a dagger twisting in his chest. "You manipulated me, Michael," John said, his tone a mix of anguish and fury. "Every moment we shared, every word of comfort. You lied to me. And for what? To further your own agenda?" Michael's eyes filled with tears, his voice trembling as he tried to explain. "I did it because I believed it was the only way to prevent a larger catastrophe. The board, the corporate machinations, they were going to dismantle everything you hold dear. I thought if I played along, I could save you from a fate worse than betrayal." John's mind reeled, torn between the loyalty he had once felt and the shock of deception. "Save me," he echoed bitterly. "By deceiving me, by orchestrating the very chaos I was meant to confront? How am I supposed to trust anything anymore?" In that small, dim room, the air was thick with the weight of shattered trust. Michael continued, his voice rising in desperation. "John, listen, there's more at stake here than our friendship. The letter, the gathering, it was never just about exposing a betrayal. It was about dismantling a corrupt system that feeds on the vulnerabilities of those who dare to stand up against it." John's inner turmoil clashed with the pragmatic logic of Michael's words. The betrayal was fresh and raw, yet the notion that a higher, more dangerous conspiracy lurked beneath the surface ignited a spark of reluctant curiosity. "Who else is involved, Michael?" he demanded, his voice steadier now, if only out of determination. "If I'm to believe your version of events, I need to know every piece of this puzzle." Michael hesitated, then nodded slowly. "There are forces at play far beyond what you or I can comprehend. I was promised protection, a seat at the table where decisions are made, if only I could steer things away from the brink. But I lost control along the way, and now everything is unraveling." The room fell silent, each second stretching into an eternity. John's mind flashed back to the cryptic warnings of the letter, to the shadows of his past, and to the countless moments when trust had been a fragile commodity. The revelation that Michael had betrayed him was a betrayal on multiple levels, personal and ideological. The intricate dance of loyalty and deception now felt like a labyrinth with no clear exit. "You must understand," Michael said softly, reaching out a hand in a gesture of reconciliation that John no longer recognized. "I never wanted to hurt you. I did what I thought was necessary to protect you and to fight back against those who manipulate power for their own gain. But I see now that in my quest to do good, I sacrificed the very foundation of our bond." John stared at the outstretched hand, his inner conflict palpable. Every instinct screamed to recoil, yet the weight of the unfolding conspiracy and the possibility of a greater threat demanded that he at least hear Michael out. Slowly, with a trembling sigh, he allowed Michael's hand to rest in his. The contact was cold, a stark reminder of the distance that now separated them. In that fraught moment, John realized that his journey was no longer just about unraveling a betrayal. It was about navigating a treacherous path where every ally could be a hidden enemy and every whispered word carried the potential for devastation. The revelation about Michael shattered his long-held beliefs about loyalty and trust. His world, already precarious, tilted further into chaos as he grappled with the duality of human nature, where the capacity for love and protection could coexist with a propensity for betrayal and self-interest. As the light outside grew dimmer with the approaching dusk, John's resolve hardened. The twist in his journey was a painful awakening, a moment that redefined every relationship and every decision he would make from that point forward. Michael's confession, the evidence of his collusion, and the complex web of conspiracies that had ensnared them all transformed the very essence of his quest. John knew that moving forward meant confronting not only the external forces that sought to manipulate him, but also the lingering doubts and fears seated deep within. The betrayal was a wound that would take time to heal, but it also became a catalyst, a call to arms that demanded he reclaim control of his own destiny. With a heavy heart and a newfound determination, John stepped away from the room, leaving Michael behind in the tangled shadows of regret and lost trust. The revelation was clear. Nothing was as it seemed, and the price of truth was often paid in shattered bonds and painful realizations. The journey ahead was uncertain, and the path was riddled with betrayal. But John vowed that he would uncover every hidden motive and expose the true faces behind the masks of deceit. The delicate balance between trust and suspicion had forever been disrupted, setting him on a course toward a future where every step was fraught with both danger and the possibility of redemption. John stepped out of the building into the chill of the early evening, the betrayal still echoing in his mind. The cool air did little to ease the internal storm as he trudged along the empty street, every step laden with doubt and uncertainty. The dark sky overhead mirrored his inner turmoil, heavy with unshed rain clouds that threatened to break at any moment. As he walked, John's thoughts churned with the implications of Michael's confession. The evidence on the tablet replayed in his mind like a broken record. Every friendly smile, every reassuring word that had once comforted him now felt like a thread woven into a tapestry of deceit. He could almost hear Michael's trembling voice, the desperate plea that had once promised protection, now ringing hollow in the wake of betrayal. At a deserted park bench, John paused. The park, usually a sanctuary of calm and reflection, now seemed to pulse with an undercurrent of menace. The rustling leaves and the distant hum of traffic underscored the relentless pace of his thoughts. He sat down heavily, running his fingers over the rough wood, seeking some anchor amid the escalating chaos. The sound of footsteps on gravel interrupted his reverie. He looked up to see a shadow stretching across the dimly lit path. It was Daniel, the man John had once held in high regard. Daniel's face was a mask of conflict, his eyes avoiding John's for a moment before finally settling on him with a pained sincerity. "John," Daniel began softly, "we need to talk." John's voice trembled as he replied, "I need to know everything. Daniel, how deep does this go? Was it all just manipulation?" Daniel took a deep breath, his gaze shifting toward the darkened horizon. "I wish I had the answers you deserve," he said, his tone tinged with regret. "Things have gotten far more complicated than any of us imagined. I've seen alliances shift, loyalties tested, and truths buried beneath layers of lies." John leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Then tell me, Daniel, who is pulling the strings? Why should I trust any of this when every promise feels like a lie?" Daniel hesitated before speaking. "There are forces beyond our control, John. People who thrive on chaos and uncertainty. I've been trying to piece together what Michael hinted at, but every step I take only deepens the mystery. I fear that I'm in too deep to come back unscathed." Their conversation was suddenly interrupted by the distant wail of sirens, a reminder that the night was far from over and that external dangers were converging upon them. The sirens added a sense of urgency to their dialogue, as if the city itself were warning them that the stakes were now life and death. John's inner conflict surged as he weighed his options. Should he trust Daniel's cautious words, or cling to the remnants of loyalty he once felt for Michael? The weight of his past decisions pressed down on him, and the choice before him felt like standing at a crossroads in a labyrinth with no exit. His mind raced, torn between the desire for retribution and the need for clarity. The atmosphere grew charged with tension as a group of figures emerged from the shadows. Their faces were indistinct, hidden beneath hoods that obscured their features, yet their presence was undeniably menacing. John recognized the unmistakable aura of the clandestine group from whispered rumors and fleeting encounters. They moved with purpose, their eyes scanning the park with an unsettling precision. Daniel instinctively reached out, urging John to move with him. "We have to get out of here," he whispered, his voice tight with urgency. "They're looking for someone who knows too much." John's heart pounded as he instinctively nodded. The arrival of these strangers confirmed that the battle he was being drawn into was not merely a personal vendetta, it was part of a larger, more dangerous game. The air was thick with anticipation and dread. As they hurried through the park, the voices of the shadowed figures grew louder, more insistent, a chorus of unseen threats closing in. Daniel, with a mix of determination and fear in his eyes, urged John into a narrow side street. "We need to lose them," he said, his tone pragmatic despite the rising panic in his voice. "Every minute we waste here brings us closer to danger." The narrow street was a stark contrast to the open, vulnerable park. Here, the tight confines pressed in on them, forcing John to confront the choices that had led him to this moment. Every echo of his footsteps was a reminder of the distance between his old life and the uncertain future that now beckoned him forward. Inside a derelict building that offered temporary refuge, John found himself wrestling with a torrent of conflicting emotions. The battered walls of the shelter seemed to close in on him as he grappled with his inner demons. He sat on a cold, concrete step, and the quiet only amplified the thundering of his heartbeat. Every decision felt monumental, each one a potential turning point in a story written by unseen hands. "I don't know what to believe anymore," John admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Every time I think I've found the truth, it slips away, replaced by another lie." Daniel sat beside him, his eyes reflecting a deep-seated pain. Sometimes, the truth is obscured by the very people we trust the most. Michael's actions, whatever his reasons, have shattered your belief in loyalty. But the bigger threat is still out there, and we must confront it if we're to reclaim any semblance of control. John's gaze dropped to his hands, the weight of his internal struggle etched in every line of his face. "I'm scared, Daniel. I'm scared of what lies ahead and of the person I might become in this fight. Every step feels like it's leading me into a deeper abyss where betrayal isn't just a possibility, it's inevitable." Daniel reached out, placing a firm hand on John's shoulder. "Fear is natural, John, but it is also what makes us human. What matters is that you don't let it paralyze you. Instead, use that fear as a catalyst to drive you forward to fight for what's right, even if it means facing the darkest parts of yourself." John looked up, searching Daniel's eyes for the strength he desperately needed. "How do I know if I'm making the right choice? How do I decide between trusting my instincts and holding on to the memories of a simpler, safer past?" The distant sound of footsteps and muffled voices reminded them that their moment of reflection was temporary. "You choose with your heart, John," Daniel replied firmly. "In a world where every face hides a secret and every promise is tainted, it's your inner truth that will guide you. And that truth, no matter how painful, will ultimately set you free." In that moment, the intensity of their shared vulnerability forged a silent bond. The escalating tension was not just a series of external challenges, it was a crucible that demanded every ounce of resolve and courage within them. The sirens, the shadowed figures, and the claustrophobic walls of the shelter were all external manifestations of the internal battle raging in John's soul. The distant wail of the sirens grew fainter as the group managed to slip away from the immediate threat, but the echoes of the danger they had just escaped lingered in their minds. For John, every decision from that point forward was no longer merely about survival. It was about reclaiming his identity and standing against a tide of betrayal that threatened to overwhelm him. As darkness gave way to a faint, pre-dawn light filtering through broken windows, John felt the weight of his choices settle on his shoulders. The emotional stakes were higher than ever before, each moment a delicate balance between vulnerability and resilience. His journey had taken a turn where every step was fraught with the risk of further betrayal, yet it also held the promise of redemption if he could muster the courage to press on. In that quiet, tense interlude, John resolved to face the uncertainty head-on. The path ahead was murky and riddled with peril, but the truth, no matter how hidden, was waiting to be uncovered. With a deep, steadying breath, he squared his shoulders, determined to emerge from the shadows of deception stronger than before. The battle for trust, redemption, and his very soul had only just begun, and every moment of tension was a reminder of the stakes he was willing to risk in search of a new, unvarnished truth. The tension reached its boiling point as John stepped into the abandoned hall of a grand, forgotten estate. Moonlight streamed through shattered windows, casting long, wavering shadows on the cold marble floor. The room, once a symbol of opulence, now lay in ruins, mirroring the state of his own heart. Every step echoed like a countdown, a prelude to the confrontation that was destined to shatter the lingering veil of deception. John's eyes burned with determination as he moved deeper into the hall. At the far end, beneath a broken chandelier that hung precariously, stood Michael, his face etched with regret and fear. Between them, like an unbridgeable chasm, lay the painful history of betrayal. Behind Michael, Daniel emerged from the darkness, his expression a mix of sorrow and resignation. The three men, whose lives had been intertwined by secrets and half-truths, now faced the moment when every hidden truth would be forced into the light. "John," Michael began, his voice trembling as he took a hesitant step forward, "I never wanted it to end like this. I thought I was protecting you, that I was steering us away from a greater harm." His words hung in the air, laden with the weight of his misguided intentions. John's gaze remained fixed on Michael, his voice low and resolute. "Protecting me? You betrayed me. You wove lies that strangled every chance I had to trust you." The hurt in his tone was raw and unmistakable. The silence that followed was as heavy as the crumbling stone wall surrounding them, each second drawing them closer to a truth that none could escape. Daniel stepped forward, his presence calm yet charged with unspoken authority. "Both of you have been caught in this twisted game," he said softly. "There is no simple hero or villain here. We have all been pawns in a scheme that goes beyond personal vendettas." His eyes moved between John and Michael, silently urging them to understand that their pain was part of a larger narrative, a story written by forces more ruthless than any one man's ambition. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance as if echoing the turmoil within. Rain began to fall, each drop a silver note in the symphony of night. The falling rain blended with the tears that streaked John's face as he looked at Michael, the one person who had once been his confidant. "I trusted you with my life," John whispered, his voice breaking under the weight of his disbelief. "And now every promise you made is nothing but a ghost that haunts me." Michael's eyes filled with anguish. "I was wrong, John. I lost my way trying to fight a war that I thought was bigger than us. I thought if I controlled the chaos, I could save you, and maybe even us, from a fate worse than betrayal." His words faltered, caught between regret and the desperate hope that his confession might offer some redemption. A flash of lightning illuminated the hall, and in that stark moment, Michael reached out with trembling hands. "I want to make things right," he pleaded. "I want to tell you everything, the hidden meetings, the secret alliances, the names behind the manipulation. But I know nothing can undo the hurt I have caused." John's heart pounded as the truth, long suppressed and buried under layers of deceit, began to seep into the room like the rain through the broken roof. "Then tell me," he demanded, his voice trembling with both rage and a yearning for clarity. "Tell me how it all began. How did we end up here, tangled in lies and betrayal?" Michael took a shuddering breath and began to speak, his voice soft and laced with sorrow. "It started with a promise to safeguard what was most precious to us. I was drawn into a circle of power where decisions were made in whispers and loyalty shifted like sand. I believed that by controlling the narrative, I could protect our futures from the hidden enemies who thrived on chaos." His eyes darted to Daniel, who remained silent but watchful. Daniel finally spoke, his tone firm yet gentle. "I witnessed things that none of us wanted to see. The board, the secret meetings, the alliances that were forged in darkness, they were all part of a plan to dismantle everything we held dear. Michael believed that by playing their game, he could change the outcome. But in doing so, he lost sight of what truly mattered." The words echoed in the vast, empty space as John struggled to reconcile the man he once trusted with the man who had betrayed him. The storm outside intensified, and the sound of rain mixed with the beating of his heart, creating a rhythm that underscored the gravity of the moment. John's eyes glistened as he turned his gaze from Michael to Daniel. "So, you were both part of this? Was I ever truly safe with you?" His question was a mix of anger, sadness, and a desperate need for truth. Michael's reply was quiet, almost inaudible over the tumult outside. "I was never truly safe, John. None of us were. But I thought I could change our fate by taking control. I thought that by deceiving you, I was shielding you from a greater evil." John felt a surge of conflicting emotions, a maelstrom of anger, sorrow, and an overwhelming desire to understand. "And what of the gathering mentioned in the letter? The hidden meeting of those who manipulate our lives?" he pressed, his voice growing stronger despite the pain. Daniel stepped closer, his eyes steady. The gathering is not a single event. It is a network of power that spans far beyond what we have seen. The betrayal, the manipulation, it is the work of many who wish to keep us divided and weak. Our struggle is not just about our personal pain, it is about breaking free from a cycle of deceit that has controlled us for far too long. In that charged moment, as the rain continued to pound against the broken glass and the thunder roared like the cries of the betrayed, John realized that his battle was far larger than the hurt of one friend's betrayal. It was a fight for truth, for dignity, and for the freedom to choose his own destiny without the shadow of manipulation looming over every decision. The tension in the room reached its peak as Michael's remorse and Daniel's solemn resolve converged in a silent understanding. "John," Michael said, his voice cracking with emotion, "I cannot undo the past, but I can help you move forward if you let me. The path we must take is treacherous, but together, perhaps we can expose the hidden forces and reclaim our lives." John looked at the two men before him, the one who had shattered his trust and the one who had tried in his own way to help. His heart ached with the betrayal, but he also felt a spark of hope. The storm outside began to subside, and in its wake, the first light of dawn broke through the darkness. It was a promise of a new beginning, a chance to rebuild what had been lost. With a heavy but resolute sigh, John nodded slowly. "I don't know if I can ever fully forgive," he admitted, his voice soft yet determined, "but I know that I cannot let this darkness win. We must face the truth and fight for what is right, no matter how painful it may be." As the new day's light grew stronger, the three men stood together in the ruined hall, the remnants of the old world scattered around them like memories of a time before betrayal. In that climactic moment, every lie was stripped away, every hidden motive laid bare before the light of truth. The confrontation had not only forced them to reckon with their own demons, but it had also united them against a common enemy, a network of power that thrived on secrecy and division. In the final moments of that fateful night, as the rain ceased and the broken windows began to reflect the soft hues of dawn, John felt a stirring within him, a renewed sense of purpose born from the ashes of betrayal. The path ahead was uncertain, and the scars of the past would remain, but he vowed to walk forward with honesty, with caution, and with a heart that, though wounded, would never again be so easily deceived. In the silence that followed, the three men took their first steps into the light of a new day, ready to face the consequences of their choices, to challenge the forces that had sought to control them, and to rebuild a trust that was now forged in the crucible of truth and sacrifice. John stood at the edge of the crumbling veranda of the old estate, watching as the last traces of the storm washed away the remnants of deceit. The night had given way to a fragile dawn, and with the gentle light of morning came a new clarity that promised both healing and hard truths. The confrontation with Michael and Daniel had left him battered by betrayal and burdened by the weight of choices made in desperation. Yet amid the ruins of trust and ambition, a seed of hope was slowly beginning to take root. Over the following days, John dedicated himself to unraveling the web of manipulation that had once entangled him. With Michael's confession echoing in his ears and Daniel's steady presence a constant reminder of the broader conspiracy, he set about piecing together the puzzle of hidden agendas and long-forgotten promises. Meetings were held in quiet, secluded rooms far from prying eyes. Each conversation, each document uncovered, revealed a tapestry of corruption and power that stretched far beyond the confines of his personal betrayal. The deeper John delved, the more he began to understand that the struggle he had been thrust into was not a battle between individuals, but a war against a system built on secrets and lies. One crisp morning, as sunlight filtered through the gaps in a boarded-up window, John sat at a worn wooden table in a small, sparsely furnished safe house. Michael was there, his head bowed in remorse, while Daniel meticulously organized files and documents that detailed the machinations of the elusive board controlling the network of power. The silence was profound, punctuated only by the scratch of pen on paper and the soft murmur of their whispered exchanges. John's mind, though still reeling from a sting of betrayal, began to see a path forward, one that required him to reconcile the pain of the past with the hope of forging a more honest future. As the investigation neared its climax, John found himself confronting not only the external forces that had manipulated his life, but also the internal demons that had festered in the wake of broken trust. Late one night, after a long day of gathering evidence and confronting corrupt officials, John wandered through a nearby park. The quiet rustle of leaves in the cool night air provided a stark contrast to the chaos of his recent experiences. He recalled the many nights spent questioning his every decision, moments when the line between right and wrong had blurred into a haze of fear and uncertainty. Now, under the vast expanse of a starlit sky, he allowed himself the luxury of reflection. In that stillness, John thought deeply about the moral implications of his journey. The betrayal by Michael had shattered his faith in the sanctity of personal loyalty, while Daniel's calm resolve had revealed that sometimes the burden of truth was too heavy for any one person to bear alone. He considered the nature of trust, a delicate construct that could be both a source of immense strength and an invitation to deep vulnerability. Every relationship, every promise, was now colored by the realization that the world was a mosaic of intentions, both noble and nefarious. The fight against the corrupt system was not simply about exposing hidden enemies. It was about reclaiming the right to choose whom to trust and how to love in a world where betrayal lurked in unexpected corners. In the days that followed, John organized a meeting with a group of reform-minded individuals who had long suffered under the manipulations of the clandestine board. In a modest community center, lit by the soft glow of fluorescent lights, he shared his findings and his vision for a future free of the insidious grip of those who exploited secrecy and fear. His words, heavy with both sorrow and determination, resonated deeply with the assembled crowd. They spoke not only of retribution, but of healing, of rebuilding a society in which every individual had the strength to stand up against tyranny and deception. It was in that room, amidst voices united in a common cause, that John found solace, a sense of purpose that transcended personal pain. Michael, too, was a part of this new chapter, though his role had evolved from that of a conspirator to a reluctant guide in the pursuit of redemption. With time and genuine effort, he began to work alongside John, sharing critical information that had once been concealed by his own misguided ambition. Their relationship, though forever altered by past transgressions, slowly began to mend. It was not an easy process. Trust, once broken, is never easily restored, but each day brought small acts of accountability and honest dialogue. In those quiet moments of reconciliation, John learned that forgiveness was not about erasing the past, but about accepting it as a part of a larger journey toward growth. One evening, as the community's efforts began to bear fruit and the first tentative steps toward dismantling the corrupt network were underway, John found himself alone on a hill overlooking the city. The urban sprawl below, with its flickering streetlights and distant hum of life, seemed to pulse with both promise and peril. Here, in the solitude of the twilight, he allowed himself a moment of introspection. He reflected on the enormity of what had transpired, the cascade of choices that had led him from a place of blissful ignorance to the stark reality of betrayal and its painful aftermath. John thought about the moral cost of his journey. The quest for truth had demanded sacrifices, relationships that could never be restored, ideals that had been tarnished, and the irrevocable loss of innocence. Yet in that loss, he also recognized a profound gift, the ability to see the world with unfiltered clarity. The painful lessons of betrayal had forged within him a resolve to pursue justice, not with vengeance, but with compassion and unwavering integrity. He understood that the path forward would be arduous and fraught with new challenges, but it was also the only way to ensure that the darkness of deceit would not consume the light of truth. In the reflective glow of that evening, John made a silent vow to honor the memory of his struggles by dedicating himself to the cause of transparency and accountability. The final confrontation with the corrupt board had not ended all the battles, but it had marked the beginning of a new era, a time when every individual was empowered to question authority and demand honesty. The scars of the past would always serve as reminders of the price of blind trust, but they would also stand as testament to the resilience of the human spirit. As the city below slowly transitioned from night to dawn, John felt a quiet peace settle over him, a peace born not of resignation, but of acceptance and hope. In the gentle light of the new day, he embraced the truth that even in a world marred by betrayal, there was always the possibility of redemption and renewal. The moral implications of his journey were vast and complex, yet they illuminated the path to a future where the power of trust, once rebuilt, could transform not only his life, but the lives of all those who dared to dream of a better tomorrow. In that moment of profound reflection, John knew that his story was far from over. The road ahead was uncertain, but armed with the lessons of the past and the support of a community bound by a shared desire for change, he stepped forward with resolve. His journey had taught him that the fight for truth was an enduring one, a battle that required courage, humility, and an unwavering commitment to the values of justice and compassion. And with that knowledge, he was ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead, confident that even in the aftermath of betrayal, the light of truth would always find a way to shine through. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more meaningful stories. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.